Textronics developed one of the first intelligent transportation systems in partnership with Motorola and Veasan Technologies. He's also the founder of Detroit Air Racing Incorporated, which led and facilitated the 2008 Detroit Red Bull Air Races. And Jon also founded the Detroit Mobility Park, a nonprofit 501c3 based out of the Detroit City Airport to facilitate autonomous air and ground mobility testing at the airport. Drones and cars go hand in hand to improve the delivery side of the automotive services of the side of the business. And Jon Rimanelli is Detroit's very own innovator, and he's been doing a lot in the field of autonomous vehicles and how drones could be used in the delivery side of business, working on unmanned aerial vehicles and the next generation of autonomous air mobility. As we all were talking about autonomous vehicles earlier, it's not only about B2C or driving people around. I think the first thing that's going to happen in the autonomous space is about delivering goods. And Jon here is going to be talking about an entire different industry that's coming up with drones. And you just saw one being demonstrated here. He's going to be talking a lot more. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome the man of the moment, Jon Rimanelli.
Thank you. Well, that was very lovely introduction. Thank you very much. I want to just take a minute to thank the folks at TiE and the core team for facilitating this incredible event and activity. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here. Well, anyways, so you've seen these things before. It's a quadcopter. It's a flying camera. And add a couple more propellers to it, and you have a hexacopter. It's a flying robot, which industries are innovating business models around the world to do jobs for people. They have limitless possibilities. Now, in Detroit, we talk a lot about connected vehicle technology, autonomous vehicle technology, and what I want to talk to you about today is something a little bit different. It's a new mode of mobility. Drones. Now that's a word with a lot of meaning. It's a word with a lot of power. It's a word that creates images and feelings, often negative, and sometimes scary. But that's not why I'm here today, and that's not what we're going to talk about. I'm Jon Rimanelli. I'm the founder and CEO of Detroit Aircraft. I'm here to talk about how drones are going to mobilize people and industries to do jobs safer, faster, more cost-effectively than ever before. We're not going to talk about Predator drones and Hellfire missiles. We're not going to talk about drones spying on people and invading their Fourth Amendment rights. What we are going to talk about are the drones that do the jobs that are very dirty, that are dull, like monitoring traffic, or dangerous, like providing firefighters and emergency responders with situational awareness so they can determine ingress and egress into a scenario and accurately deal with the problem at hand. As well as the drones that can save time. They can save lives. That can save money by automating processes. So before I really get into it, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Detroit Aircraft and what we do. So I founded the company in 2011 with this big crazy idea that we were going to automate the movement of passengers and packages with small aircraft transportation systems that we could build and develop here in the state of Michigan, leveraging all this industrial muscle that we have and all this incredible, innovative brain power that we have in the region. That's a big idea. And, well, 2011, they really thought it was nuts. So we're housed over at the City of Detroit Airport, which back in the 20s was the busiest airport in the world, back when the original Detroit aircraft was founded. It was founded by Edsel Ford, William Stout. It ultimately became the largest aerospace company in the world, owning the most famous brands of the day, to include the Ryan Aircraft Company, as well as Lockheed, to name a few. But unfortunately, when the stock market crashed in 1929, the company had shuttered its doors, sold off all of its assets, most notably Lockheed for $40,000, which today is a $46 billion enterprise with 120,000 worldwide employees. And I couldn't help to think, when I learned about that, now how Detroit or Michigan might have been different had that company survived. And it really inspired me because it was back in 2008 when most of us were really hurting in our businesses. And we saw a lot of changes in low-cost country production. It really inspired me. I'm like, man, we really need to apply our automotive capabilities to this next generation of mobility. So I'm happy to say that we're back. We've risen from the ashes, I think we're on our 4th time this year. We're really hoping for better things, and we're very optimistic about the future. We're building state-of-the-art technology, innovating new platforms and technologies right here in the city. Last year, we did a little over $1 million in sales, supporting Lockheed Martin as a contract manufacturer, representing multiple law enforcement and public safety agencies around the country. Our drones have been used for wildlife monitoring, particularly feral pig monitoring. With ExxonMobil, one of our drones actually delivered GPS sensors to icebergs in the Arctic, so they can do iceberg traffic control, of all things. You wipe out an entire oil and gas platform with an iceberg. NASA used one of our vehicles to develop a methane gas sensor. So the use cases and the applications for drones are just literally limitless. And PwC said that by 2020, the worldwide drone market will exceed $120 billion. Here in the United States, we're projecting, according to the FAA, roughly 7 million aircraft in the national airspace system between consumer and commercial applications. Now, a lot of that's going to be driven by some new regulations, some new guidelines that just came out. For the last 15 years, commercial drone operations were illegal. They were banned. You couldn't do it. A year ago, you could get an authorization, but you needed to be a pilot to actually fly a drone. Well, as about a month ago, if you're over the age of 17 and you take a knowledge exam, you can now go out and fly a drone for hire. And there's so many use cases. We're only going to focus on a couple of them here today. But it's called the Section 107. It's an online knowledge test. It basically makes sure that you understand the nature of the national airspace system, the different airspaces that are in the airspace system, so that you can fly safely without creating any undue risk to people or property on the ground or in the air. The applications really started coming out of the film industry. Film industry was able to use these drones because they're cheaper than a helicopter, and you can get shots that a boom truck could never get. Real estate companies are using these to take aerial film and photography of their properties. Construction companies are using them to do visual project updates. Survey and engineering companies and municipalities can now use drones to create orthomosaics, whereby they take a series of pictures, they're all geo-referenced, they stitch them together in some software, and what we have now is a wonderful high-resolution document image that we can plan from. Typically, that surveying process could take days. Now we can do it in less than an hour. Photogrammetry, creating 3D images in different environments, coal pile measurements. Engineering firms are strapping LiDAR to scan environments and structures. Farmers are using these tools in a way that's probably one of the most disruptive applications for drones, in that in the current state, in that we can use a multispectral camera to predict plant health and view plant health. Using an invisible wavelength, we can see a plant turn yellow 2 weeks before you can see it with a human eye. Now, what's great about that is a farmer can actually use a drone to determine where we need to add water, pesticides, and fertilizers, which means we're getting a higher production rate with fewer inputs and fewer amounts of fertilizers and pesticides that end up in our water supply, which is great for all of us. Utility companies, they're inspecting power lines. Super dangerous job. You got to get up there, you got to climb up, typically a live wire. Now we don't have to do that anymore. We can actually send a drone up there, get a thermal image, look for increases in resistance and hotspots or degradation in the infrastructure, and make a replacement without putting people at risk. Roof inspections, industrial, or at your house, looking at your gutters, chimneys. The applications have gone as far as advertising with a drone. So whether you're advertising your company or using it to collect data, the possibilities and the applications for drones are unlimited. And at the end of the day, it's all about the data, right? But when I think about drones and I think about the real opportunity, I think about it in the context of the growth in urban cities across the world, where we're going to see a current population of 3.3 billion people increase to about 5 billion people by 2030, which means that those cities are going to have a really, really huge opportunity and incredible demand for innovation in new forms of mobility. Today, rush hour is a real inconvenience for all of us, right? But by 2030, when we've doubled the number of cars on the road, it's not going to be so much of an inconvenience anymore. It's going to be more an issue of human welfare, because we're going to see what we're going to see a lot more of is global gridlock. And Bill Ford really articulates this point very well, in that if we don't think about alternative solutions in mobility, people, healthcare, and food are really going to have a difficult time getting around. So in my view, drones represent an incredible opportunity to help relieve pressure from the roads, reduce the number of cars on the roads by bringing data collection, package delivery, or even passenger mobility to the third dimension, right? Popularized by Amazon, it's no longer a concept. They're actively working to perfect this process of package delivery by drone. Now, what would be really interesting if we could actually get pizzas by drone, because that would really take a bunch of drivers off the road, those crazy drivers. But what if you could go to San Francisco Marina and jump on a vertical takeoff and landing electric aircraft and fly to downtown San Jose and be there in 15 minutes? Or you can jump in an Uber X and you can take maybe about an hour and 40 minutes to get there. For an equivalent price, you can use an electric helicopter to move you from San Jose back to San Francisco. So, not such a crazy idea, because yesterday Uber issued its Elevate white paper, whereby 2020 we'll have a point-to-point multimodal air transportation system where the central leg is all done by an electric aircraft. 2020, that's like 4 years away. Less than 4 years away. EHang, this is it kind of looks like a big giant blender to me, but it's a passenger drone. It'll fly for 23 minutes, on a single charge. There are some other startups in Germany. This company here is Velocopter, and they're doing a use case analysis in London where they're going to ferry traffic from London Heathrow to the London City Airport in 15 minutes using an electric aircraft as opposed to an hour and a half on the ground. It was just announced about a month ago that Airbus is going to be demonstrating an electric VTOL aircraft next fall. A short-haul air vehicle which will shuttle passengers from major airports to major cities. That's a crazy idea, right? Companies around the world are now envisioning and taking action and making investments to create a three-dimensional mobility future. So the question is, you got all these drones up there, whether they're collecting data, delivering pizzas, delivering passengers. How do you manage this traffic? This is going to be a real problem. Well, the answer actually is kind of in this room. It's in this region. You don't know it. But we're developing the connected vehicle technologies right here in Detroit and in Michigan that is going to sequence and separate traffic and facilitate vehicle-to-vehicle communication, which will enable us to leverage that infrastructure to create those three-dimensional highways, whereby we'll be able to broadcast where the lanes are, facilitate comms, data, video, collision avoidance. Now, Amazon's idea is segregating the airspace. From 200 feet on below, that's slow traffic. From 200 feet to 400 feet, that's transient, fast traffic. Over and above that is where the manned or piloted traffic operate. Now, there's an experiment that Airbus is working on right now with the University of Singapore, where they're setting up this program, it's called Skyways, whereby students will be able to order products and have it delivered by drone to a designated location, and they receive a notification on their smartphone that they can go pick up their app. That's kind of interesting. From Airbus's view, this really is their opportunity to demonstrate that unmanned aircraft in urban environments are safe and will really open and pave the way for their passenger transportation system. So this kind of brings me back to Detroit in Michigan and all the folks in this room who are involved in software, hardware, automotive, connected vehicle technologies, and ask, what can we do as a community, as an industry, to leverage the muscle that we have here in Detroit to usher in this next generation in air mobility? And you start thinking about our history. You know, Henry Ford not only put the world on wheels, but he put the world on wings. He convinced everyone that air travel was actually safe, right here in Michigan. So here we are, in the epicenter of mobility, the place where it all started. So from my point of view, I had to come up with our solution for air mobility. We call it the cargo drone. Working with the University of Michigan's Aerospace Department, the Panos Automotive Group, some other sponsors, Ideal. We have a lot of our kids from Wayne State University College of Engineering here as well, which are doing an incredible job innovating new products and technologies right here in Detroit. But this is our solution, and it basically is a VTOL aircraft system, takes off like a helicopter, transitions to a linear high-speed cruise, whereby we're using vectored thrust and controlling the surfaces, the lift surfaces of our aircraft to facilitate a smooth and safe transition. This aircraft is scalable. Right now we're building a 5 kg system that could move medical supplies, it could move food or packages or camera systems to collect data. Within 100 kilometers on a single charge. Maybe it's in countries that don't have infrastructure. Maybe it's in major metropolitan cities where we have on-demand data services or on-demand delivery services. We're working with the Panos automotive team to put together a proof of concept for a 200 kg system that'll lift a couple of folks my size, maybe some packages. This is the future in air mobility, and Detroit and the folks in this room, this community, really have a great opportunity to contribute to this rapidly emerging industry in air mobility. And I really, just more than anything, want to welcome all of you. The race for on-demand air mobility is on. And if we can put Michigan's muscle and all the brain power, the innovation capability in this room and in this region together, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to lead this next generation in air mobility. So with that, I'm going to close. Thank you.